Smarting inside and outside the classroom, smartphones, non-professional interpretation, and attitudes of the young. Usage of smartphones is not only prevalent, so is ridiculing people, especially the young, for the usage of them. In pop culture, it is easy to encounter jokes making fun of people glued to their smartphone screens. These jokes have already engendered an idiom, smombies, smartphone zombies. Furthermore, the common attitude among educators is to treat smartphones as a threat to learning. This suspicion of smartphones has its institutional analog. The devices tend to be banned from public school classrooms. This is certainly the case in South Korea, where they are banned from public school until the end of high school. Yet, in part because of their prevalence and their increasing technological sophistication, one is compelled to ask, do they not also have educational potential? This is a particularly germane question for language learning, since the devices with their dictionary and translation apps are very suitable for working between languages, and moreover, since the internationalization of social media theoretically lends a widespread means for students to improve their foreign language skills in a way they enjoy. These types of openly structured activities inherently incline toward what might be termed casual translation. That is, translation that is not engaged in order to gain marks or produce a quote-unquote perfect result, but translation that is employed for communicative purposes within casual social contexts, such as those one finds in social media. And since the prevalence of smartphones is such a widespread phenomena, and since social media usage is one of the favorite activities of smartphone owners, social media I'm going to define here as everything including texting to apps such as Kakao and WhatsApp. Then it is logical to view social media, commonly considered a threat within a classroom context because of its power to distract, as one means by which a self-motivated student can improve his or her foreign language skills by engaging in casual practice and interpretation on these social media. There are other smartphone tools such students can utilize as well. Dictionaries, email, self-recording to improve pronunciation and intonation, watching videos, and so forth. In effect, any tool that the machine of a smartphone provides is viable if its creative usage improves language acquisition. For years, the potential of mobile digital technology as a language learning tool has been recognized within the field of education studies. El Hussein et al. 2010 have characterized mobile learning as, quote, any type of learning that takes place in learning environments and spaces that take account of the mobility of technology, mobility of learners, and mobility of learning, end quote. And using a mobile phone as the digital machine utilized when studying a language has been categorized beginning in 1996 by Chickering and Ehrman, with Geddes 2004, and Kukulska, Hume, and Scheel 2008, focusing specifically on smartphones. Parallel to this has been a body of study on using mobile devices for learning generally, with acknowledgement that the devices remain viewed with suspicion by many within education, Mello 2005. Yet while researchers within the academic field of education are enthusiastic about smartphones as an educational tool, and also enthusiastic about their usage in social economic settings where smartphones are more accessible than pricey textbooks, such as the case in parts of Africa, there is resistance to them, quite noticeable resistance, in popular discourse about education. In an article in The Atlantic by Peter Barnwell, a teacher at Fern Creek High School in Louisville, Kentucky, Barnwell is adamantly skeptical about the educational benefits that smartphones bring. Alternatively, smartphones as learning tools also have their supporters. For example, at a secondary school in the UK called IPACA on the Isle of Portland, smartphone usage in the classroom is embraced. However, the points I would like to underline for a Korean audience are: 1. That we need not view smartphones within the classroom as a strict either-or. They could be banned from some classes while utilized in other classes in a controlled fashion. 2. Classes devoted to foreign language acquisition are frequently most effective when a communicative teaching style is employed, i.e., when students either speak freely or write spontaneously in full sentences and paragraphs. 3. Speaking and writing spontaneously in a foreign language inherently involves some of the skills of informal translation. 4. Korean students tend to be somewhat hesitant to speak or write spontaneously. 5. Any tool which could encourage Koreans to write spontaneously would be well considered as a useful classroom assistant. 6. When students are motivated enough to self-study, any foreign language activity is useful in improving acquisition, and this practice often has a casual quality. 7. Smartphones not only interest young people because they like mobile digital technology, they are also directly useful to writing. For example, dictionary apps as well as search engines that provide research material, speaking, recording one's own voice as a memo, listening, recording the instructor's voice when the lecture material is difficult, and reading, finding useful research material online or finding research material that genuinely interests students, such as articles about pop culture or sports that would increase their engagement in conversation classes and increase their vocabularies. Casual interpretation was an activity inherently embedded in many of the self-study habits that this last group of students created. Yet paradoxically, when asked how they felt about smartphones and whether they were detrimental to education, many university students answered yes. This was part of a more widespread critique that students had about smartphones generally, as a seductive technology that, while entertaining and useful, also carried with it real-world dangers. For example, when I asked them about the phenomenon of distracted walking, their answers expressed serious misgivings about the behavior one currently frequently witnesses, and the students were clear that they thought these behavior patterns should change. Student 1. Quote, "Distracted walking is actually much more dangerous than what we think. I think what is needed the most to solve this problem is to give people proper education. The right way to use smartphones, including while walking, should now be part of the school safety education. Aside from this, parents themselves should realize the danger of distracted walking and instruct the children to put their phones aside while they're walking. It is true that we weren't able to provide the proper safety education because of the overwhelming speed of technology development. Now that these problems are becoming an issue, we should try to make the fastest change we can to this through proper education." End of quote. However, when asking specifically about smartphones as a learning tool, several students, especially those who were proactive in creating their own learning exercises, were enthusiastic about the positive potential these machines had. What is significant here is the students were not simply voicing abstract opinions, but basing their comments on tasks they had already utilized and benefited from as language learners. Talking to students who use smartphones as an informal learning tool was an invigorating experience, since the inventiveness and ingenuity of these young people underscored that smartphones, like laptops, like other digital devices, have considerable positive educational potential. It is worth noting that the university at which I work, Hanguk University of Foreign Studies, the school has built an online system it calls eClass, and obviously other universities have similar systems. Students are therefore inherently inclined to use their phones since it is an easy way to access homework and find out about class assignments. Frequent usage of eClass was one activity, a springboard, one might say, for students who also used their smartphones as self-study tools. While doing earlier research with John Wrigglesworth, Wrigglesworth and I talked to a wide talked about students about a wide range of activities students used. For example, messaging apps like KakaoTalk or WhatsApp, social media such as Facebook, dictionary apps, ebooks that were online, videos via platforms such as YouTube, and so forth were all used by students. Preferred activities were chatting with foreign friends in the student's second language, reading or watching English language material, and recording one's voice or those of others. One student wrote, quote, "I use my smartphone when I'm on group work. We can check each other's material by KakaoTalk, especially group chat. I use ebook a lot. When the book is too heavy or when I forgot to bring the book to class, ebook is my lifesaver. ePapyrus ebook library app is my favorite. And I'm a big fan of podcasts. When I go to bed, I always turn on VOA News or other radio channels. It helps me listening English. Also, I can play other radio channels that I missed. To watch impressive scene of movie or drama, YouTube is the best one. When I get boring and feel sleepy during class, or when the lecture is too hard to understand by one-time listening, I make voice recordings of lectures. Actually, I use it very often, like once a day. And if there are lots of writings on board, I take photos of it using Silent Camera app. I don't prefer writing notes during class because some professors might think that I'm texting during the class. And using Translate app by scanning the pictures of English sentences that is difficult for me, I can get the contents of notes easily. When I was interested in Spanish, and since there are so many learning Spanish books, so it's too hard to pick one, then I downloaded the app Duolingo and it helped me." End quote. Another student commented about eClass specifically. I often use smartphone to access eClass. Since I don't know when professors will upload notices or assignments, I access eClass every day, more than once a day." End of quote. However, what was of interest was his own habits with the phone. For example, quote, "I use Facebook the most when I use English. I have some foreign friends in the US since I have been there as an exchange student for a year. When I share information, I use Timeline or Facebook Message. Also, I used voice call, an international call, and video call, Skype, to talk with my foreign friends regularly a few years ago, but we rarely use them now due to the time difference." End quote. So this student's ability to use the phone directly as a communication tool varied according to the availability of his friends and determined whether or not he would use voice or text communications. This particular student used at least 6 different functions on his phone that were linked to improving his English ability: memos, voice recording, media apps, social media texting, phoning, and reading. While these activities were sometimes prompted by classroom activity, they also sometimes were not. The situation was inherently seamless. Similarly, I would argue this usage of casual translation was also seamless, that is, employed when the situation required it. If teachers are to keep up with technological change within society, at least some degree of smartphone usage incorporated into the curriculum is worth considering. While it is happening at a de facto level in universities, it is not directly planned into curriculum. So the point that I'd like to emphasize here is that there is the self-study that's happening outside the classroom, but maybe inside the classroom we could sort of integrate what's happening outside the classroom in a more sort of controlled fashion and improve interest and improve usage of smartphones in both situations. Yet, as experiments with classroom usage moreover, since smartphones banned from middle and high schools are left to be only tools for personal communication and entertainment, it is not surprising that they are often viewed as threats. Yet, as the experiments with classroom usage at the IPACA school on the Isle of Portsmouth show, if smartphones are rigorously controlled in class to be used only for assignments and left face up on one's desk, it is possible to bring them into classrooms even with younger students. And students at the university level who self-study show that smartphones are easily integrated into self-study regimens. If there is enough of a trend toward the educational usage of smartphones, then other means for limiting the danger as distractions might be developed. For example, apps that temporarily turn off chatting and texting apps. In other words, you reduce the functionality of the smartphone so it doesn't distract in class. In these ways, the great potential of smartphones to contribute in a positive way to foreign language acquisition could be enhanced.